Is the Sur-Ron an electric bicycle? No. And there is a gray area, and I'm going to cover that in this video, but it's not a bicycle. Some people want to be a bicycle because you want to be able to ride it on the street, you want to be able to ride it on bicycle trails, but it's not a bicycle. And hear me out. Every state has its own e-bike laws, and even though they're slowly still getting developed, most of them figure them out by now. California is the toughest, but most of the other states have this three following rules. It has to have pedals, something that you could physically move the vehicle with, not pegs where you put your foot down. So this, it's not in compliance. The motor has to be under 750 watts, which is an equivalent of 1 horsepower. This is a 5,000 kilowatt motor or 4,500. So not in compliance. It shouldn't go faster than 20 miles an hour. This one can go unlocked 47, so not in compliance. So theoretically, any bike path, any bike lane, anywhere where bicycles are allowed, this is not. But there is hope out there for those people that already spent the money and now they're like, oh crap. With these e-bikes, there is a lot of gray areas, and gray areas are important. To bring this motorcycle in compliance, you have to cross into the gray areas and you have to interpret the law the proper way. This motor, even though it's a 5,000 watt motor, it could be limited to 750 watts. So if you enable a limiter on it from the app or from the switch on the handlebars, theoretically you are getting into the gray area where you're close to compliance. The same way as that police doesn't stop a Bugatti Veyron because it can go 300 miles an hour as long as it doesn't pass the speed limit. So theoretically, just because you have more power, you shouldn't be penalized for that if you're not using it. You need a pedal kit on it. It's a must. And there's two kits available for this bike. One is built by a company called Kaniwaba. That's really the best kit available for the Sur-Ron. It costs you $260 plus tax plus shipping to get it. So it's about 300 bucks. There is a cheaper version built by Sur-Ron themselves or Segway themselves, which attaches to the rear swing arm. Stay away from it. It's one of the most horrible installations and it feels horrible. It's placed in the wrong place. It's just a patch to solve a problem that existed, which this is not a bicycle. So stay away from that one. But the first one that I mentioned for $300, it's really worth the money to bring this motorcycle in compliance. And at that point, you have a very strong case. Any bicyclist, any motorcyclist, anybody that wants to just have a conversation with you about like, oh, you're not supposed to be here. You could pull up the law, print it on a piece of paper. As of 2022, you are in compliance in my state, Nevada, and most of the states out there. Now, here's when things get a little bit complicated. You gotta be very careful because what you don't want is to get into an accident. Because if you get into an accident, they have to do an investigation. If you have to get into an investigation because you hit somebody on a trail or a bike path or something like that, then they could come over and they look at your bike, and at that point, they could prove that you're going maybe over 20 miles an hour because even though the vehicle should be limited to 20, you unlocked it, so you were going faster. Most e-bikes these days can go a lot faster than 20 miles an hour, but as I said, it's a lot of gray area. You could actually pedal faster than 20 miles an hour, but you have to be very careful. Also, they could prove that your motor is bigger than what the paper says, and even though you limited it to 750 watts, let's be honest, it's quite hard from the software to do that. If you get into an accident, you could get into a lot of trouble. The pedals, it's great to have, but they're useless. So if you're running out of battery and you have to pedal this thing home, you're gonna have a horrible experience. So the pedal kit is great on paper, it's great to make it legal, still not a bicycle. But if you follow those three rules, you are satisfying the interpretation of the law. So if anybody wants to complain about it, then you should be good to go. Now obviously, whoever buys these bikes, the first thing they do, they unlock them to full potential, which is like 45 miles an hour. Obviously, the motor is 5,000 watts, and obviously the pedals are useless. So if you're gonna encounter some mountain bikers, some bicyclists on the trail, or some people that just really wanna complain, you by the interpretation of the law, are in compliance. But because it's in a gray area, you don't want to create a big deal out of it because it's absolutely not worth it. I've seen people riding these things on the Las Vegas Strip with normal motorcycle foot pegs, without any pedals, the bike's unlocked, and they were doing wheelies. So can you get away with it? Yes. I've seen people passing cop cars that couldn't care less that this is really not fully converted to a bicycle. But to have a case with a cop, if it stops you, you gotta spend the money. You gotta put the pedal kit on it. You gotta have a switch on the handlebars that could prove to the cop that you could limit it as far as the speed and power goes. And you gotta take it easy, because as soon as you look fast, you're gonna be in trouble. And if you get stopped by a cop and he asks you, hey, you gotta pedal home from here, start turning those pedals at 2 miles an hour because that's the speed you're gonna get, and just accept your win or whatever you want at that point. The fact that you haven't got a ticket. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think at the bottom, what kind of experiences you had with this bike. I am still deciding if I'm gonna make the investment to make it full street legal and not categorize it as a moped. But as it is right now, this is not a full bicycle in this stage that it is right now. Thanks for watching.